Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andrew Decino. I hope you are having a fantastic day, fantastic Friday, because we all know that you are listening to this as soon as it drops on whatever airways you were listening to this. I know the fans at home are loyal. I know it. It's a fact. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, a plethora of topics on this Friday. First, we'll get into one of those topics where you say, I can't believe that just happened. And that's Sam Darnold being traded to the Carolina Panthers. I'll break that down for you. Next up, we're going to get into Deshaun Watson. We talked about him a few weeks ago, but there have been some significant developments since you and I last talked about Deshaun Watson, quarterback, as of now, for the Houston Texans. Third, we're going to get into a potential quarterback in the NFL. Well, definite quarterback in the NFL. It's Justin Fields. He's going to get drafted in a few weeks, but where is he going to go? And then there are certain analysts making comments about his work ethic, and that started some controversy. I'll get into that a little bit. And then lastly, here's segment 4 that you will be waiting for the entire time. I know that. So the Kansas City Chiefs proposed that players now can wear certain numbers that may have not been allowed for their position group before. I will get into that, and I will say who I can't wait for them to possibly change their number and what players would look awesome in a new number previously not allowed. So we'll get into all that and more, and here we go. So let's get right into topic number 1, segment number 1. Earlier this week, Sam Darnold, the 2018 third overall pick for the New York Jets, Sam Darnold. He was on the move. Earlier this week, the Carolina Panthers traded for Sam Darnold. In return, the Jets received 3 draft picks, a 6th rounder in the 2021 draft, and then a 2nd and 4th rounder in 2022. Some people are saying that the Jets didn't get enough in return for the former 3rd overall pick, 2018. I'm saying that the Carolina Panthers gave up way too much to get Sam Darnold. And I'll tell you why. So, think of the quarterbacks in the 2018 draft. You have Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, as just mentioned, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, of course, Lamar Jackson. So, in the previous episode, I talked about how important I think a third year is for a player. And obviously for the 2018 draft class, well, 2020 was the big year. Right? Baker Mayfield got off to a great rookie year, then had a sophomore slump. Then he picked it back up in 2020. Got the Browns to the playoffs. What a big playoff game, too. And then had a lead against, or almost had a lead, and almost won against Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson. He's won MVP. He won a playoff game last year in his 3rd year. So he's figuring it out. Okay, there were some woes with his playoff record, and of course, his season did end to the next man we'll talk about, Josh Allen, last year. Boy, oh boy, was Josh Allen good. he could have won MVP if it was not for Aaron Rodgers. Right? Aaron Rodgers, and of course now it seems like Patrick Mahomes is going to be in the running for it every single year. You know, of course, I don't speak too soon, but Josh Allen can do a lot of the same stuff that Patrick Mahomes can do. He has the big arm, can move. I think Josh Allen can move way better than Patrick Mahomes. He's big, and with the progression that he's made in his third year with Brian Daboll, and then adding Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen had a monster third year. And of course, we'll leave Josh Rosen out of this because I think the verdict is in. Bust. Then you go to Sam Darnold. And his rookie year wasn't great. You know, it wasn't a Baker Mayfield type rookie year. Surely wasn't as good as Lamar Jackson was his rookie year. But he had some flashes of doing okay. And then in 2019, of course, you remember on that Monday night against the Patriots when he said he was seeing ghosts. So, and then the whole mono outbreak too with Sam Darnold. So, Jets fans would be quick to say that Sam Darnold, he was good. We deserved more for him. And for the first 2 years of these 2018 draft class of their careers, I'd say Jets fans were adamant into saying that Sam Darnold was actually better than Josh Allen. Even though Darnold, and of course wins aren't a QB stat, right? Sam Darnold went 4-9 his rookie year. Went 7-6 the next year. Okay, so improvement. And then, of course, in 2020, he went 2-10. And there's no trend of improvement. He's not getting better. In fact, he's getting sacked at a higher percent. He is the stat adjusted net yards per attempt is the lowest it is in his entire career as of 2020. His QBR, 40.1. You know who had a worse QBR than Sam Darnold last year out of the eligible quarterbacks? No one. He had the worst. Nick Mullins had a better quarterback rating. Mitchell Trubisky, who everyone gives some flack to, had a better quarterback rating. Nick Foles, even Cam Newton, who I've criticized on his throwing ability. Sam Darnold was the worst out of everyone eligible. So the narrative that Sam Darnold, was good or wasn't surrounded by enough talent. Sure, I'll give you that. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Jets had great talent on the offensive side of the football because they didn't. They don't. And, of course, Adam Gase isn't necessarily the best developer of talent either. Adam Gase has a job in the NFL because of his time spent with Peyton Manning. And maybe Peyton Manning, owed Adam Gase something, but it seems like that is the reason why Adam Gase still has a job, of course, from their time in Denver together. And then you take a look at some of the more important or more telling metrics, because I listed wins. I'm not going to talk about his atrocious touchdown to interception ratio or I did talk about his increase in sacks. So is that an indictment on the team? Is that an indictment on Sam Darnold? Well, there's a stat according to Next Gen Stats, which I think is very useful. So you have obviously your completion percentage, and then you have expected completion percentage, right? So meaning, and of course this is according to Next Gen Stats. So you want to know what expected completion percentage is? Well, a user's using a passer's completion probability on every play determine what a passer's completion percentage is expected to be. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Based off of, whatever algorithm they have, separation at the route, how open they are at the time of the throw. That's the expected completion percentage. So obviously a positive and a higher number is great. And I think this stat can tell the tale of a quarterback very well. Deshaun Watson leads the stat at 4.8 for a completion percentage above expectation, meaning what was their completion percentage and what their expected completion percentage was. So 4.8 Deshaun Watson leads the pack. Close behind is Josh Allen. Now this makes sense, doesn't it? Deshaun Watson on a bad team. We all know that. We all admit that. But Deshaun Watson, everyone says, is really, really good. Does this make sense? Yes, it makes sense. Deshaun Watson is really good and he's on a terrible team. Okay? 4.8 for completion percentage above expected. Now, where does someone like, we'll list out Tom Brady. 1.3. Now, Tom Brady is a great quarterback, but he's also on a great team with the receivers getting themselves open. That makes sense. It's not going to be as high as Deshaun Watson or Josh Allen, who lead the pack, but Tom Brady, he 1.3 is still above 0. That makes sense. Now you get down to some of the bottom of the list. Where is Sam Darnold, you ask? Minus 3.2. So yes, his team isn't good. I admit that the talent is not there, but he is in the negatives for completion percentage above expected. He's missing throws. He's missing throws that he should have made. So how do you explain that? And then we can take a look at some other stats here too. So there is a stat called EPA per play, right? EPA per play, and there's also EPA per dropback. So let's start with EPA per dropback. That's the net difference between points added and subtracted on a per dropback basis. So basically, in simple terms, right, for me to understand, how many points are they adding per play, right? Are they, for example, converting on a third down, keeps the drive going? That will have a high point added per play. So Sam Darnold in 2018 to 2019, he was actually in the positives in many different situations. Next Gen Stats tweeted this out, and I think it's very useful. On quick throws, he had he was middle of the pack. He ranked 14th in EPA per play on quick throw situations. Third and less than 6. He was ranked 16th. Okay, still middle of the pack. Vertical routes, 19th in the league. And in tight alignment situations, he was 13th in the league. And in 2020, he was 34th in the league on quick passing situations, 31st on third and less than 6th. Vertical routes, he was 35th. In tight alignment, he was 30th. Now, this is out of 35 quarterbacks in 2020. And then the first 2018 to 2019, that's out of 37 qualified quarterbacks. Sam Darnold, I will go out on a limb. Not even going out on a limb. This is just my opinion, and I think you should probably take it as fact. He's not nearly as good as everyone makes him out to be. In my opinion, people saw him coming out of USC. He was the guy that was hyped up in his senior year in college. Oh, man, this guy's going to be the next big deal. Similar hype to Trevor Lawrence, who is going to be the next coming. He is going to be the Peyton Manning, and, he is just going to be so spectacular. First of all, calm the hype a little bit. Second of all, could you imagine just the narratives of some of these quarterbacks in the 2018 draft? and if the roles were reversed. Sam Darnold obviously so hyped up, and that's why I think that he even lasted this long on the Jets. How'd you not move on at quarterback earlier? I mean, it was bad, and his third year proved it. Now, Josh Allen was getting criticized, very much so, right? He came out of Wyoming. Statistically, wasn't that good there. Okay, his completion percentage, that was the big thing for Josh Allen. Completion percentage in the dumps, first 2 years in the league. You know, of course, he made the playoffs his second year, but had some boneheaded moves in the Houston wildcard game. But then in his third year, he just drastically improved. Now, what would have happened if Josh Allen in his third year had a year like Sam Darnold had? Or what would happen if Josh Allen performed as poorly as Sam Darnold did his entire career? They would be roasting him alive if he did anywhere near that, in my opinion. And Sam Darnold seems to get all these breaks. And now you look at the Twitter sphere or the social media realm, whatever you want to say, the talking heads. And everyone is saying, well, you know, he's going to go from Adam Gase to Joe Brady. This is going to be really good for Sam Darnold. He's got all the talent around him. He's going to have Robbie Anderson reuniting together. He's going to have Christian McCaffrey. But the Panthers, they still have Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is a very liked player. And last time I checked, you know, I think, what would you do if you were a player in the locker room and now your team is thinking about playing Sam Darnold over Teddy Bridgewater? I like Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's good. He obviously is not going to light you up, explosiveness-wise, but he's not going to make the boneheaded, turnover, addictive plays that Sam Darnold is prone to. And, you know, is Carolina going to have a quarterback situation they're going to need to handle? Are they still going to draft a quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft coming up in just a few weeks? So, I think Carolina gave up way too much. Those 3 picks for Sam Darnold, for him to either, you know, is he going to start there? I don't think so. So, in my opinion, you're giving the Jets all these picks just to have him back up. It does not make sense. So, now you think, okay, is Sam Darnold now going to start there? Because they did give up 3 picks to have him. You know, Sam Darnold, I'll give you another stat for you. His PFF grade in 2020, 58.4. I mean, he had 9 touchdowns to 11 picks. I just don't get it. I don't get what people see in Sam Darnold, and I still think it revolves around the hype that surrounded him coming out of USC, even before his USC days. So now you're going to send Sam Darnold into Carolina. I don't think he's going to be the starter there. And if he was, would this Joe Brady system make a difference either? You know, they call him, I guess, a quarterback whisperer and, you know, very helpful to the offense. But at what point can we just say that maybe Sam Darnold's not that good? And I've been saying it for a while. But again, over and over and over, and I just don't understand why people just keep defending Sam Darnold. Now, prove me wrong, Sam Darnold, if you want. I'm willing to admit, you know, being wrong. But, you know, the Jets clearly needed to move on from him. 3 years, it wasn't working. couldn't even complete his rookie deal with the team. Now, is this an indication that either A, and think about this too, does this mean that the Jets thought of him so poorly that they needed to get rid of him? But also, from what the Panthers gave, it seems like they value what Sam Darnold can offer. But the Jets are going to pick Zach Wilson in all likelihood now, in almost 100% certainty now, unless the Jaguars just completely flip the script and move away from Trevor Lawrence. But it seems as if Zach Wilson will be a New York Jet. Did they just not want to have, a 23-year-old and Sam Darnold and a rookie both in the quarterback room together when Sam Darnold is clearly trying to preserve and resurrect his career? Meanwhile, you have Zach Wilson, who probably is trying to learn and understand the NFL, and then eventually the Jets would hope that he is their future. So I understand that, not wanting Sam Darnold on your team. I just don't understand why the Panthers would give up 3 picks in order to get Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold, you saw him today or a few days ago now celebrating that he's going to Carolina. Friends and family threw a party for him. Tell you what, go beat out Teddy Bridgewater. Now, I get that maybe if you talk about pure upside, Sam Darnold will have a greater upside than Teddy Bridgewater. But, Teddy Bridgewater has the greatest chance of winning you football games over Sam Darnold. And besides Christian McCaffrey, it's not like Sam Darnold is joining this star-studded offensive football team either. It's not like he's joining the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, throwing at Evans and Godwin and Antonio Brown if he can get his contract situation sorted out. So, you have, of course, McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson. You got DJ Moore. But the Panthers currently have the 8th overall pick of the draft. Is a quarterback going to be there? I don't know. Would a guy they want be there? Maybe. Would Trey Lance be there? I don't know. But what I do know is the Panthers way overpaid the Jets to get Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold is just not that good. And we're going to go to a break now, but after the break, you should be looking forward to our next segment. A lot has transpired, like I said, since we last talked about this. Deshaun Watson, what is going on with him? Make sure to stick around for that. And then, of course, stick around for our last 2 segments after that, which is Justin Fields, breaking him down. And then, of course, the new proposal of number changes. All that and more coming up next.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
welcome back. I hope you missed me during our short intermission. And what did we talk about in the first segment? In case you forgot, well, I'll give you the summary. I don't think Sam Darnold is good, and I think that the Panthers way overpaid for the trade. Jets won the trade. Congratulations. The Jets won something. Round of applause for them. Now, we have a big topic to kind of unload and unpack here for segment 2. It is Deshaun Watson and what's going on with him. So there is a big timeline of things that have occurred with Deshaun Watson. Of course, if you remember 2 episodes ago, we talked about how there were 16 or 18 or 20 cases. And of course, now there's 22 cases filed against Deshaun Watson. And they were all filed with the same attorney, Tony Busby. And they were all filed under Jane Doe. Of course, Deshaun Watson and his attorney, Rusty Hardin, have denied it, saying that there's no evidence. They're not, providing more than text messages, and no one has come out and spoken. And it took a while for Deshaun and his camp to actually issue a statement. And so that was about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. But a lot has transpired since then. Well, I believe since we last talked about this, more cases have been filed. There's now 22 civil cases and at least 2 criminal complaints against Deshaun Watson. And, of course, there's going to be the possibility of more allegations since every day that this has gone on, there have just been more and more cases piling up. So what has Tony Busby, attorney for all these cases, what has he said? Well, in case you missed it, now the Texans might have partial responsibility for Watson's alleged massage habits and preying on massage therapists. Tony Busby said that Watson, he received referrals from the Houston Texans for massage therapists. He borrowed massage tables from the Houston Texans. So now they're kind of dragged into it as well. And the NFL has commented on this. They said that this is, quote unquote, deeply disturbing. Okay, so they have not gone to action yet, and we'll talk about that later on in this segment, what the NFL should be doing as of right now. And as of Wednesday, April 7th, you'll probably listen to this Friday, multiple sponsors have dropped Deshaun Watson. So Reliant Energy has dropped Deshaun as a brand ambassador. Nike has suspended endorsement with Deshaun Watson. And coupled with this, there's a press conference held by Busby on Tuesday. And there are now 2 plaintiffs who have revealed their name and have made comments. And they have spoken out. And the first of the women who have spoken out against Deshaun Watson and revealed their identity was Ashley Solis. Ashley Solis. And a quote that really resonated from the Tuesday press conference. She said, quote, "I'm here to take back the power and take back control. I'm a survivor of assault and harassment." End quote. And so you see her speaking out, and it really, makes you empathize and realize that there are also 20 more names besides Ashley Solis and Lauren Baxley who have now who have not spoken out yet. And I remember we spoke about this a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And yes, many of us were thinking that this is kind of fishy that all the cases were filed with one attorney. None of them are revealing their name. And the attorney is neighbors with the Texans owner, Cal McNair. Yeah, so originally we were, I think, at least raising our eyebrows, but this Tuesday press conference really shed light, on the fact that this definitely needs to be taken care of. And again, if Deshaun Watson is found guilty of these allegations, then, he's going to have to face the music and be punished accordingly. And Deshaun was losing the court of public opinion 2 weeks ago with all these cases filed against him. Because you also think, okay, there's all these cases, there, has to be truth behind them. And now we are seeing these people come out and speak out against Deshaun Watson with their name, with their faces being seen. And so that was one of Watson's attorney, Rusty Hardin's points before, saying, they're all Jane Doe, none of them are revealing themselves. So now we see a counter again by Tony Buzbee. And this first plaintiff, again, Ashley Solis, reportedly wanted $100,000 to avoid the lawsuit altogether. This is according to Rusty Hardin, and noted that she is not just, quote-unquote, doing this for the money. Watson's camp responded by saying, we did not think that the facts showed that Deshaun did anything wrong with their client. We believed then and fully believe now that Deshaun learned a lesson about putting himself in this type of situation by interacting with people he does not know. As the emails show, we were willing to continue discussions on Deshaun's behalf to explore ways to prevent a lawsuit and a public spectacle. But Mr. Buzbee informed us that he was unwilling to do so. We expect that this matter will be resolved in court. End quote. That is what Watson's camp has said. So, and again, a response to that, Lauren Baxley, the other plaintiff that has spoken out, says, quote, your good guy persona is nothing more than a meticulously designed facade to keep your victim silent, end quote. And I remember when we were talking about this before, people were saying, Deshaun, you see every report is saying that he seems like a good guy. He seems like a nice guy. Can we picture him doing this? And Lauren counters and says, yeah, it's a cover-up. He takes advantage of women, and he's not exactly who he says he is and who he tries to portray himself as being. And if you want to know how Deshaun goes about this routine, well, Buzbee spoke about this again on Tuesday, saying how, this whole interaction occurs. So Buzbee says Deshaun reaches out to women on Instagram for a massage. He, A, doesn't care if they are a masseuse or not. B, if they respond saying they're not a masseuse, he says, well, can you try it anyways? So again, these appointments are arranged over Instagram DMs, direct message. He also apparently insists that the woman has to be alone. He tells them what to wear. He says, it's really hot in Houston. You should wear this. And then he says he will bring his own towel. And apparently it's a small washcloth. And then he has them sign non-disclosures either at the beginning or at the end of the quote-unquote massage. That's how Buzbee portrays that these events went down. So, again, 22 cases with Buzbee against Deshaun Watson, accusing him of all this. There have been 18 masseuses who have come to the defense of Deshaun Watson. 22 plus 18, 40. 40 masseuses. Who has that many masseuses, honestly? That's incredible. I think I've gotten one massage ever. And Deshaun has had 40 different masseuses. Not just 40 massages, lifetime. No, 40 different masseuses. Yeah, that doesn't that raise a red flag that maybe Deshaun's not doing something right here? We have probably all watched Tom Brady or heard of, his methods of getting treatment and pliability. I'm sure we've all heard the word pliability 1,000 times by now when it comes to Tom Brady. And he has his one guy. He has Alex Guerrero. I'm sure you know who Alex Guerrero is because there was a whole, falling out between Guerrero and whether Belichick wanted him there and his questionable methods. But still, that's one guy because Tom Brady, obviously, we all know, values his body and being able to perform at the highest level. Now, of course, Deshaun Watson, as a football player, you think he's getting these massages to perform at a high level and to have his body recover. Yet he has 40 different ones. Wouldn't you think that, okay, sure, you might try and find different masseuses to help you recover and to have your body perform, but then don't you think you kind of find one that helps your body the most? I don't know why this isn't Baskin Robbins 21 different flavors or whatever it is. If you're doing this for your football career, why do you have 40 different masseuses and just keep changing them up? That's the interesting thing about it. And I think one of the 18 people who defended Deshaun originally, right, says, Deshaun, I've treated him, he's a good guy. He's never made any, advancement onto me. Tony Busby countered. Tony Busby's done his homework because the one of the 18 who have defended Deshaun found text messages which basically show that defender of Watson saying that she's aware of his reputation and of what he has been doing. This was back in March 2020, I believe, that these texts were made from. March 2020. So, yeah, it is not looking good for Deshaun Watson as of right now. And that begs the question, what should the NFL do with Deshaun Watson? Because I mentioned Nike suspended their endorsements. Reliant Energy says Deshaun's no longer going to be a brand ambassador. So NFL's turn. What are they going to do? They have their hands full with Watson. I think they're in a very tricky situation. Again, it's just interesting to look at how far this has come in merely such a short time. But last time I spoke about this, I was saying that, 22 or however many cases there were at the time, that because of the evidence presented and no criminal motion yet, that the NFL, especially in the offseason, wasn't going to do anything with Watson. They were just going to see how this is going to play out, that they don't need to make a move yet. It's the offseason. And then once training camp ramps up and the preseason, that's when they would have to start thinking about it. I think they need to start thinking about it now. Now they need to decide what they want to do. In the offseason, the league generally doesn't use the commissioner's exempt list, since the commissioner's exempt list is used for them to not play football. Well, there's no football being played right now. There's no even football activities. If you think back a few years with Tyreek Hill, when there were allegations of him, I think, beating his child, in the offseason, Tyreek Hill voluntarily stayed away from the offseason program while investigation took place. The investigation took place, Hill was cleared, and then he returned to training camp. So the NFL has protocol. They have paid leave, device allowing them to kind of get rid of Deshaun Watson while this investigation takes place. And with no criminal conviction yet, I think the NFL is confused on what to do. Because so far I don't think they've even issued a statement more than saying that they are, deeply concerned or whatever it was that they had said. So now after the Tuesday press conference, what is the NFL going to do? Is Deshaun Watson going to speak and put his face in front of a camera and say his side of the story, say what is going on? Because Deshaun Watson's camp and Deshaun Watson, I don't think are responding nearly enough to everything that's being said. And of course they don't have to. Deshaun, still has all of his privileges and rights and doesn't need to say anything yet, but he's by far losing in the court of public opinion. If he wants to even hope of going back to some sense of normality, if he was, cleared of all this, I think he's got to say something. And don't you think that someone who actually didn't do this would be fighting tooth and nail saying, hey, don't besmirch my name. I didn't do anything wrong here. And Deshaun Watson, we're not seeing any of that. We're just seeing his attorney speak for him saying, Deshaun's going to learn, not to put himself. They said he learned a lesson about putting himself in this type of situation by interacting with people he does not know. Yeah, well, that should be. Shouldn't we know that? And to each their own, but to direct message people on Instagram to ask for massages. Don't you play on the Houston Texans? Don't they have like a masseuse there already for you and all this training staff? But no, you're direct messaging random people on Instagram. That's a whole different story. But the original point of what I was getting at is, what is the NFL going to do? They said it's deeply disturbing, but at this point, I think the NFL is going to have to do something. I would imagine they're going to place him on the paid leave list. But is that going to be enough? What if more people come out? More people could be coming out and showing their faces and giving their name by the time this reaches you on April 9th. So, will he be placed on the commissioner's exempt list? And then the investigation takes place. They have their time in court because it doesn't sound like they're going to settle. But again, this is a really bad couple of weeks for Deshaun Watson, and it just got a lot worse on Wednesday, April 7th. It is definitely a difficult, decision for these women to speak out and share their story. And, they have. Two of them have. And it really just, draws focus now back to Deshaun Watson. And now the league has to realize they have to do something. They have to do something. Deshaun Watson has to do something. Because right now it's really only Busby and the accusers are going down hard on Watson. So, in the Houston Texans, like I mentioned at the beginning, now they're dragged back into this because, again, Busby claims that they gave referrals and massage tables to Watson. I'm not the best lawyer out there, but does that have legal ramifications for them as well? It really is interesting how fast this moves. And every, I guess you could say, counter by Rusty Harden in the Deshaun Watson camp has been exploited by Busby and the accusers. Harden originally said, hey, all your accusers are staying under the alias Jane Doe. They're not saying anything. All you have are these allegations and text messages of Deshaun Watson saying, oh, I'm sorry, I put you in an uncomfortable situation. Busby countered. 2 people have spoken out. And then Harden said, okay, well, there's 18 people who will defend Deshaun Watson. And then Busby said, oh, yeah? Well, one of those 18 people seems to be acknowledging Deshaun Watson does have this reputation. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Yeah, a lot here, a lot to unpack. I hope you get a sense of what's going on here. Everyone seems to be having their hands full right now. And we'll see how this plays out when it goes to court, because at this point I don't think they're going to be settling here. So Deshaun Watson right now, it looks like his feet are dug in the ground, that he's going to fight this. Still not saying anything, though. The NFL is also still not saying anything. But as of midweek this week, I am hypothesizing that the NFL is going to react with some action here, not just a statement. They need to put out more statements, but they are. I believe they will respond with some kind of action here, and it is crazy, just all that can happen in a short few weeks for Deshaun Watson. Again, want to make it clear, if all this for Deshaun Watson, if he's found guilty, he 100% needs to be punished accordingly. And an episode ago, 2 episodes ago, I did raise my eyebrows at some of the things that were happening in this case. And I think many people did. But now, that's what was so important about the Tuesday press conference and everything that Busby has been doing. It now almost washes away any skepticism or doubt that we did have. Or now we said, oh, well, none of them have revealed themselves. Well, now they have. We don't know the specifics, but besides Deshaun's, text message response. Well, now we have. They've issued statements saying what exactly happened, how this happens, how he goes and direct messages them on Instagram. Now we're getting a story that's like, yeah, okay, I see what's going on here. So that's the latest on Deshaun Watson. I'm sure there will be more to come in the next few days, the next few weeks. But to get into the next segment after the break, we will be talking about a quarterback that could be entering this league and will be entering this league very shortly. That's Justin Fields. He played out of Ohio State. He beat Trevor Lawrence in the college football playoffs. What's going on with him? People questioning his work ethic. Very interesting subject. And, of course, the last segment 4, we will be talking about the curious rule proposal by the Kansas City Chiefs and new numbers for certain players. That's a fun topic that we will be getting into a little bit later. All right, we'll see you right after the break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. I am Andrew Desino, and I missed you in the commercial break. But now we're back. What did we talk about so far? We talked about Deshaun Watson and what is going on with him. A lot of developments lately. We talked about what the NFL should be doing with him, what Deshaun Watson should be doing to take care of his situation. And in the first segment, we talked about Sam Darnold and him being on the move and him just maybe not being a good quarterback. Speaking of quarterbacks, we're heading into segment 3 now. Justin Fields. So Justin Fields, of course, is the star quarterback from Ohio State. He played in Georgia in his 2018 year. Then he went to Ohio State for 2019 and 2020, and now is entering the NFL draft. And this is a quarterback-heavy NFL draft because where do most people have Justin Fields? It's uncertain. One thing we know for sure, Trevor Lawrence is presumed to go number 1 to the Jaguars. Zach Wilson is assumed to go number 2 to the Jets. Broadway Zach. And then after that, we have unknowns. San Francisco has the 3rd pick now. We think that they want Mac Jones. I think that they want Mac Jones. I think the consensus is becoming they want Mac Jones. Maybe the only other option that people have been saying is Trey Lance. Let's talk about him. Is Trey Lance the 3rd, 4th, or 5th best quarterback in the draft? Those 3 guys, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones, people are unsure as to where they rank in this draft among quarterbacks. Because Lawrence and Wilson are 1-2. So where do these quarterbacks go? And I think at this point, it goes based off of fit for team. Because the San Francisco 49ers, one thing that Kyle Shanahan values, of course that's the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, is being able to make these off-kilter throws. And this is according to Chris Sims. When people are down at your feet, when they're rushing you in the pocket, can you make throws using just your arm? And it makes sense. Chris Sims loves Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, maybe I'm not the best quarterback guru, but you've watched Aaron Rodgers. He does not have the best foot mechanics and leg mechanics, but he has just a spectacular arm. He can make throws from any platform, any angle. That's one thing that Jimmy Garoppolo really couldn't do as well. Jimmy Garoppolo kind of needs his feet set to throw it. Almost similar to, Brady a little bit. Brady needs to have his feet under him, and when people are down around his feet, that's when things aren't as good for him. So let's just say that the San Francisco 49ers, they are ready to win a Super Bowl. They were there in 2019. They were a throw away from the Super Bowl championship, Lombardi trophy. But Garoppolo couldn't hit the throw. So they're looking for a guy who can come in, ready to run that offense, ready to make throws, that maybe Garoppolo couldn't make. Maybe moves pretty well. And this is the quarterback, Mac Jones, who even said about San Francisco, he says, yeah, they have a quarterback-friendly offense. So it looks like the two are falling in love. So let's say Mac Jones goes 3. Atlanta at 4. Atlanta just said on Tuesday they're willing to move out of the 4. They're willing to move out of 4. 4th overall pick. Does that mean they don't want a quarterback? Do they want to get a receiver, a tight end? They want Pitts? And then right after them is Cincinnati. I don't think Cincinnati wants a quarterback. They have their guy, Joey Burrow. So next you look at the Lions and you look at, well, the Lions just got Jared Goff. And Carolina at 8, they're still looking at a quarterback, even though they just got Sam Darnold, and we previously talked about him. But Carolina is still willing to bring in a quarterback in the draft. Is that Justin Fields? So I'm willing to say, and regardless of who actually is better or more, highly touted, I think Mac Jones goes 3. And so that leaves Trey Lance and Justin Fields to duke it out, to go, the 4th quarterback or the 5th quarterback taken. You think if Justin Fields falls past, let's say, they fall past the Cowboys, right? If they fall past the Giants or the Eagles, at what point does New England trade ahead of Minnesota to get a quarterback? Because if Fields is there, I could picture Minnesota drafting a quarterback. They have Kirk Cousins, yeah, but I don't think they're going to go anywhere with Kirk Cousins. I think they're still looking for a quarterback. After 3, after San Francisco, Atlanta, I think, could easily pick a quarterback if they want to. They said they're willing to trade out. Bengals, they're not going to get a quarterback. Miami, they're not going to get a quarterback. Detroit, they could get a quarterback. They don't need to. Carolina, they are probably going to get a quarterback, in my opinion. Denver, they need to. I don't think Drew Lock is the solution. Dallas, they won't. Giants, they won't. Eagles, they won't. They traded out of that. They've moved picks around. Chargers, they won't. Justin Herbert. Vikings, yes, they could. In New England, they want to. So those teams, they're going to try and be moving up. I think if Fields or Lance could possibly be scooped up by Lions, Panthers, or Broncos. And I think if you get past them, then there's a big chance that New England might move up ahead of Minnesota just to make sure that they get a guy. They're not going to trade up if the first 5 quarterbacks on the board are swooped up in the first 5 picks or, whatever it is. So that's where I think Justin Fields could land. But let's talk more about what some analysts think about Justin Fields, because there's a little bit of ambiguity. Dan Orlovsky of ESPN. Dan Orlovsky, of course, played quarterback in the NFL. He is now a commentator, an analyst. And Orlovsky said some interesting comments on Justin Fields earlier this week. His original comments were, quote, 1, I have heard that he is a last guy in, first guy out type of quarterback. Like, not the maniacal work ethic. I've even heard it compared to Justin Herbert, where it was like, dude, when Justin Herbert showed up, he was like a psychopath when it came to working and getting ready for the draft. Or even at school, like, give me more. I want to work nonstop. And I've heard that there are issues with Justin Fields. Work ethic. The second thing is, where is his desire to be a great quarterback? I think that there's a desire to be a big-time athlete from what is expressed to me, but where is his desire to be a great quarterback? And to be great, you got to be willing to find things that you are not good at and just freaking grind on them. End quote. That was Orlovsky's original comments. Now that's heavy. You are going after Justin Fields right there. To attack a quarterback going into this draft, their work ethic. Now, things are said positively and negatively, oftentimes negatively about certain quarterbacks, for us to maybe take our eyes off them. And one thing I will say is, and I think Chris Sims has admitted to this before, sometimes someone who has the stage, like Orlovsky or Sims, to be heard and to give their breakdown of a certain player or quarterback entering the draft, they will do so so that a certain team could have that player fall to them. So let's say, this is just making this up here. Let's say Orlovsky had ties to, well, he does. We could say it about the Lions. Let's say the Lions are like, yeah, Orlovsky, can you throw some shade at Justin Fields real quick so we make sure that he can fall to us, that a team will be skeptical about his work ethic, which is just be bull jive, and then he'll fall to us because we know that he's good. He's a good kid, works hard. So Orlovsky says, yeah, I think Chris Sims actually did that with Ayuk, but not negative. He just didn't praise the wide receiver Ayuk, as much as he would leave him off of his rankings. He would leave him off of his top 5 wide receivers entering the draft so that his friend, Kyle Shanahan, could scoop up a guy like that. So this is one of those, always be wary about criticism. Always be wary about criticism about guys entering the NFL draft. I think if you really want to know how a certain guy is, of course you listen to the positives, see, what do guys like Mel Kiper, Todd McShay think about certain guys. I think those guys are very honest and they're not really going to get pushed around by anyone. They have their name made. They don't need to say exaggerations or falsify anything. And then when a guy actually gets drafted on draft day, you'll have those guys break down how they were and usually say the goods, the bads. And at that point, there's no incentive to twist the truth because they just got drafted. So Orlovsky said all these negative things about Justin Fields. Now, granted, as a Michigan fan, I thought it was, I don't like these Ohio State players. Justin Fields has burned Michigan too many times. So it's not, I'm not going to come to Fields' defense. Just kidding. But so Kirk Herbstreit is Dan Orlovsky's co-worker over at ESPN. Love Kirk Herbstreit. He is so good at what he does in the college realm and college sphere. Boy, he does everything. He's on the, college game day morning. He calls games at night. He will give constant analysis of any college player like ever. Kirk Herbstreit is a literal genius when it comes to the college game. So Kirk Herbstreit fires back. And of course, this is, now you have to think of things with a grain of salt too. We thought of Orlovsky's comments with a grain of salt, and now remember Kirk Herbstreit, where did he go to college? He went to college at The Ohio State. He played football there. But he responded, he said, quote, absolutely ridiculous. He tweeted. He said, quote, even if you aren't saying it, to pass that along from people in the know is reckless and absurd. Embarrassing. So basically he's criticizing Dan Orlovsky for, one, saying these comments while not revealing the source. He is just saying, oh, people I know, people I've heard, blah, 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 blah. No source attached to it. And second, he's saying even if these were from a valid source, it's just false. It's absurd. It is wrong. And as someone who has power in the media, just don't be intellectually dishonest, is what Kirk Herbstreit was saying. So now that begs the question, should Dan Orlovsky be mad at Kirk Herbstreit for taking their squabble public? Or should Orlovsky kind of take his lumps and say, yeah, there's a lot of truth to what Kirk is saying. I was wrong. Well, you want the answer to that? Dan Orlovsky spoke with Peter King, Football Morning in America. Orlovsky apparently told Peter King that a few teams did actually question Justin Fields' work ethic, but Orlovsky, quote, regrets not having more clarity and specificity in his comments. So, yeah, I guess what they're really getting at with Dan Orlovsky is he should have prefaced this by saying, I don't know this firsthand. These is just things that I've heard about Justin Fields. I don't know Justin Fields personally, nor his work ethic personally. And so that it was not responsible of me to say that. Because now there's, if I'm Justin Fields, I'd be mad. I'll tell you that. I would be mad. Even if, let's say I'm Justin Fields and I am the hardest worker out there. People are now questioning it. And first of all, I don't care what Dan Orlovsky thinks, but I care that other people might care what Dan Orlovsky thinks, or that they take Dan Orlovsky as a truth teller or someone who should be his comments taken with validity. So if I'm Justin Fields, I'm mad. I'm trying to get drafted as high as you can. You know how the difference in salary it is for your first 4 or 5 years as a first-round draft pick, the higher you are drafted? There is a big discrepancy between the number 1 overall pick and the number 32 overall pick, even in the first round. So now you're getting teams to pass on me, potentially, if they listen to you, Dan Orlovsky. You're making me give up dollars, potentially. So, yeah, that is not fair, and I would be mad if I was Justin Fields. However, Orlovsky did, apparently had a phone call with Justin Fields, apologized, cleared the air, and Justin Fields, from all accounts, seems like a great guy because I think he wasn't upset with Orlovsky, wasn't mad at him, and they had a nice civil talk. So, credit Justin Fields for forgiving, but not forgetting, right? We do want to be aware that, like I mentioned, this is false narrative season. People are going to be saying things so that teams might be able to get the guy they want to get. And we talked about this a few minutes ago. I really think it's interesting. Where is Justin Fields going to land? What is going to happen with him? Atlanta Falcons. They could, and this is what I don't know. Everyone likes to say they know. I am admitting I don't know. To me, they equally could trade out of that pick, or they could get a quarterback. Matt Ryan, I don't think Matt Ryan is bad. I think that Super Bowl 51 maybe mentally scarred him, and he has not returned to MVP form. But you have Matt Ryan, 35 years old, by the way, but that's still fine at this day and age. That's not that old for a quarterback just yet. He's approaching it. He is definitely, he's not going to be one of those guys playing well into his 40s, at least I don't think. That's maybe 39, 40 is, he'll call it a day. But I could see him having 4 more years to go, Matt Ryan. You have Julio Jones. And, of course, it's not Julio Jones in his heyday, but this is still Julio Jones, 32 years old, still 6'3", still can go up and grab it for you. And then you got Calvin Ridley. He's an emerging superstar. And this guy, he's only 26. He had 90 grabs last year for the Falcons. So you could trade out of that 4 pick, or you could use it for a quarterback, or you could use it to get the best tight end in the nation, Kyle Pitts. And now you have Pitts, Jones, Calvin Ridley. Does that sound pretty good to you so far? That's a pretty good offense. Of course, they had a lot of issues on defense last year, and you could take care of that. Get yourself a running back. Get yourself a defense that can hold their own a little bit, and now you're looking at a team that maybe could compete again in that NFC South. And think about this too. Or if you pass on Justin Fields and you pass on Trey Lance, that opens up the door for your rival in the NFC South, or a potential rival, the Carolina Panthers, to then get a quarterback. They're picking not so later after you. So, yeah, you pass on one quarterback, and now your division rival could then get them instead. Is that something you want if you're Atlanta, yeah, I get it. You're close, potentially, to being back in the swing of things. But I'll tell you, I think this Atlanta thing is one of the more interesting picks for the NFL draft coming up. I'm really interested to see what happens. I mean, Justin Fields, could he fall to Denver? I don't think so. I don't think John Elway is, he usually drafts, he just drafted Drew Lock. Could they want Justin Fields? I don't know. The Panthers, like I said, Lancer Fields, I don't know. No one knows anything. But one thing I know for sure, next segment after the break is going to be awesome. A rule proposal will allow players who have not worn single digits to be able to wear single digits, like defensive backs, running backs. So I'm going to break down what I think of the rule change proposal and what players would look awesome in some different numbers. All that after the break. We are heading into segment 4, and we will see you shortly.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, friends, and welcome back from that commercial break. We have had such a great episode so far. Such a great episode. We first, of course, talked about Sam Darnold and his lack of being a good quarterback and the Panthers overpaying for him. And, the price is not right for Sam Darnold. They paid too much. The Carolina Panthers did. Then we got into Deshaun Watson a little bit, the quarterback for the Houston Texans. And news continued to circulate around his name. And 2 of the plaintiffs revealing their identity and speaking about Deshaun Watson. He's up to his knees in some murky water right now. Then we talked about Justin Fields, in particular on 2 things. Where is Justin Fields going to go in this NFL draft? What teams would want him? Where is he going to fall to? Where does he rank among the 5 quarterbacks we talk about a lot? Quickly, Lawrence, Wilson, Fields, Lance, Mac Jones. And then an analyst, Dan Orlovsky, made some very interesting remarks about his work ethic. That was segment 3. And now, getting into the last segment, of course, number change. So you see a lot of times guys in college, you'll see like a linebacker wear, a single-digit number, or a defensive back wear a single-digit number, or a wide receiver wear a single-digit number. At Michigan, number 1 is very coveted for wide receivers. You are honored by wearing number 1 if you get to. I know many D linemen actually sometimes wear a single-digit. And this rule proposal, now going to the NFL, a rule proposal by the Kansas City Chiefs, one that is, according to sources, likely to pass by the owners in a month when they vote for the 2021 rule changes, is actually both fun and needed. And so the Chiefs explained that they are making this rule proposal for number changes to allow for certain position groups to, they're getting tight on numbers. They're allowing them to wear a broader assortment of numbers so that when we have rosters expanded to 90, that they actually have jersey numbers for everyone to wear. So, what is the proposal, you ask? QB, punter, kicker can wear numbers 1 through 19. Running back, tight end, wide receiver, they can wear numbers 1 through 49 and 80 through 89. Defensive back, 1 through 49. Linebacker, 1 through 59 and 90 through 99. Offensive lineman, 50 through 79. Defensive line, 50 through 79 and 90 through 99. So obviously the fun here comes for the running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, and DBs. The fun is not so fun for the punters and kickers, who will likely be squeezed on having to give up their single-digit number. Because kickers are, I've seen many ones, a lot of threes, a lot of fours. So you think they're going to be hard-pressed to give up their number if this rule proposal passes? So again, the Chiefs lobbied for this because they are running out of numbers. Shrinking assortment of available numbers for teams to use, especially when, the rosters are getting larger in training camp, and then players get injured. So what do you do? And we know that in college, multiple people can wear the same number as long as they're on different sides of the football. So, and that was a solution because obviously the college rosters are just so gigantic that they needed to do that. They can't say everyone has to wear a different number in college. The roster is just too big. So it's a numbers game now. Running back, tight end, wide receiver in college, like I had mentioned, they're all going to want that single-digit number. A single-digit number, for some reason, is highly coveted. So you're going to have many players, if this rule proposal passes, wanting to go to single digits. And I'll get into those in just a moment. Defensive backs, that's going to be a cool one. That's really going to be coveted for a single digit. They're really going to want that. So it's going to be fun. So it's two parts, like I mentioned. It's going to be fun for some of these players, not so fun for the punchers and kickers who are going to be forced to give up their number or paid off or whatever, or forced out, who knows. And then it's also helpful. So I said that they're running out of numbers to give. So you may not believe me, and you may be asking yourself, well, how is that possible? How do you run out of numbers to give? Peter King explained it beautifully with a couple of examples. He says, when the practice squads expanded to 16 players per team last year, put a crunch on the numbers, especially for teams that have retired numbers. The Chiefs were the one who proposed this rule, so let's use them for an example. So Kansas City has 3 numbers that are retired in the 20 through 49 range, which was originally what these, the defensive backs, for example, could use prior to the rule change. They had 28, 33, and 36 retired. And then that leaves 26 numbers that can be issued between 20 and 49. So then when people start getting hurt, then what do you do? Because you issue out numbers. Defensive back Alex Brown got hurt. They gave him a number in the 20 to 49 range. DeAndre Baker got number 30, got injured. Running back on the practice squad got a number. So it seems to be a very difficult number game to manage. That's the facts on why they wanted to change it, and then they also said it could be for fun. Well, we talked about the logistics behind needing it. Well, let's talk about the fun aspect of it as well. And might we say it is going to be good for business? as well for the NFL. Expanded jersey sales, right? If a guy changes his number, you got to get his new jersey. So who are some of the players that we'd like to see wearing a new number? Possibly a single-digit number. So there have been players who have spoken out and been ecstatic about the rule proposal. Let's start with running back Dalvin Cook, who wore the single-digit number 4 in high school and college. Now, I think it'd be really awesome to see. I think seeing a running back in a single digit would be pretty awesome to see. Be pretty cool. Dalvin Cook, he's expressed interest in it. Right now he wears 33. Well, what would Dalvin Cook look like in a number 4? I think that could be pretty cool. I'm going to stick on running backs for just a second. Alvin Kamara. Right now he wears 41. How about 6 that he wore at Tennessee and in high school? Right? And is this not, a fun thing for him to do? You saw Alvin Kamara during Christmas. He wore like red and green cleats. He likes to have fun. I think Alvin Kamara, if this passes, he would love to change to number 6. You know who wore number 6 before him in New Orleans? Thomas Morstead. Morstead's gone. So 6 is open. Here's an interesting one. Anyone who knows me well knows I am a big fan of what the Buffalo Bills have been doing lately. I like Stephon Diggs. I think he's been awesome for Josh Allen. So, Stephon Diggs, of course, wears 14. He was the leading receiver in the NFL last year in terms of catches, in terms of yards. So, wouldn't it only make sense for him to wear the number 1? Because he's the best receiver in the National Football League. Stephon Diggs. That would be pretty neat. Now, he's rocked 14 pretty well. But he wore number 1, of course, in college, at Maryland, and in high school. And I talked about it, what the number 1 means at Michigan. And I'm sure the number 1 is significant at other universities and schools as well. It's your big-time player when you look up to on and off the field. It's an honor, a lot of times, the number 1 is. Stephon Diggs, he was contemplating it so much. In fact, he issued a couple of tweets. And after debating this, I guess, between himself for quite some time, he said, quote, "After some thought, I can't change my number. All the people that spent their hard-earned money supporting the 14, I got to keep it." Stephon Diggs, nice guy. A lot of times Stephon Diggs gets a bad rap. I'm sure you've seen that YouTube video of them going around the Minnesota Vikings locker room saying, "Who'd you least want to date your sister?" Stephon Diggs won with flying colors, actually. Flying colors. So Stephon Diggs, rest assured, if you have a Stephon Diggs jersey, you're not going to need to buy a new one. But this is also, I think, why it's going to pass by the NFL. It is going to be good for business, because if my favorite player changed their jersey number, you got to get another jersey, right? If Alvin Kamara changes his number and you're an Alvin Kamara fan, you're getting a new jersey. If you can, of course. Stephon Diggs, that's the reason he did not. And I think if this passed, he would 100% change his number to 1 if it weren't for the fans. So he's looking out for them. They bought his jersey. They supported him, and he's not going to make them go back to the well. Another player I have down on my list that I think would actually rock a single-digit jersey pretty well would be Odell Beckham Jr. Could you imagine him, Jarvis Landry, rocking single digits? I think that would be pretty cool. The resurrection of Odell, right? He has not had a good past couple of years. Why doesn't he just try it all, scrap it all, try again, and use a single-digit number? And let's see what he can come up with. I think that could be interesting. I think he would. Almost like a rejuvenation for him. Makes sense. Odell Beckham Jr. Now, Chase Young. Chase Young would be one that would be sick. Remember him at Ohio State? What number he wore? Back at the Ohio State University, he wore number 2. That'd be freaking sweet. As a guy on your defensive line coming after you wearing number 2. I'd love to see that. I think that'd be a really, really cool thing. Now, of course, you have a ton of receivers who would all want to change their number. Some honorable mentions. Calvin Ridley, Michael Thomas. But let's talk about Michael Thomas for a second. Could you imagine Michael Thomas, who has expressed interest in number 3? Well, Will Lutz currently has it, but he rocked a single digit at the Ohio State. Now imagine Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas wearing single digits. Your top 2 playmakers on that team, single digits. Honorable mention, DeAndre Hopkins. He's at 10 now, so he only needs to drop a digit to get to 9. But flip it upside down, and that's what he wore at Clemson. He wore the number 6. But I'm more interested in seeing some of these defensive players. Bobby Wagner. Imagine him wearing a single digit. And doesn't a single digit just kind of look funky on some of those bigger guys? Like, I think Chase Young would wear it really well. For some reason, when you're down on the line, it kind of could look cool, but a stand-up linebacker wearing a single digit, that could be interesting. Same with Levante David, Super Bowl champion. He's been in the league for 9-10 years now. Just won a Super Bowl. Just signed a 2-year deal. So, could he finish off second, part of his football career in a different number? Single digit. Again, he's a linebacker, stand-up linebacker. Levante David. Could he wear a single digit? I think, again, defensive players, I think it'd be awesome if they wore single digits. So that's why I'm going to talk about Jalen Ramsey a little bit here. Wears 20 right now. You have to have a certain attitude, swagger, to wear a single digit, I think. It's a big deal. It's definitely a big deal. And Jalen Ramsey has that attitude. You remember, we watched him on Hard Knocks, the LA Hard Knocks. He's got some feisty in him. He's not afraid to talk. And his play can back it up. Jalen Ramsey is awesome. He is really, really good. So I think if he switched back to the number that he wore at Florida State, number 8, that'd be pretty cool. And we're talking about DBs. Jalen Ramsey's one of the best in the game. Now, another guy who formerly was probably best in the game. I don't know at this point if he is. Stephon Gilmore in New England. Well, that also begs the question, will he continue to stay in New England? I don't know. As of now, yes. But he could rock a single digit. Your top corner on your team, if he can back up his play, go wear a single digit. That'd be awesome. That would be pretty sweet. But think about having to relearn all these players' jersey numbers. And it would kind of look funky seeing these guys in different uniforms. Imagine if there's just a mass switch of jersey numbers. And that's what we could see. What if Chase Young goes up to you and says, I don't know if the Washington kicker wears number 2 or not, or whatever number Young wants. He says, hey, by the way, I want number 2. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to just bully kickers and punters out of their number? Maybe. Pay them. And I feel bad for the fan who, what if your team has 3 guys just change their number? Like Antoine Winfield has expressed interest in it. Levante David, we just spoke about. That's 2 guys. What if both those guys just up and change their number? This isn't, like Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. Even Marshawn Lattimore. 3 Saints. What if all 3 of them change their number? You have their jersey. That stinks. It's kind of a bummer. But, hey, we're going to see this come to a vote from the owners. See if it changes or not. I'd look forward to it. I think it'd be a fun thing to do. And, it's not like the NFL has to get more fun. I'm quite thoroughly entertained by the National Football League and just playing football in general. But if the players want it, if it makes them happy, great. If you're the NFL, it's great for business. If you're a punter, kicker, or a fan at home that has that jersey, it stinks for you. That's the loser of this rule proposal. But hey, only time will tell. And only time will tell for quite a few things, like everything that we've talked about here. Like I've mentioned, again, we'll recap what we went through. Sam Darnold, I think the jury's come back and he is not good. Is there going to be a jury for Deshaun Watson, or is he going to settle, or what's going to happen there? That was segment number 2. Then we talked about Justin Fields, where he might go, and some comments that were said about him that could impact his draft stock. And then last but not least, this great segment where we talked about the rule proposal, single digits. It's actually needed for certain teams like the Chiefs. It could be fun. It's good for business, and it stinks for you and I at home who might need to buy a few new jerseys. So, but that's what we covered in today's episode. I had a great time, of course, like I do every single episode with you guys. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you. I have been a menace on Twitter lately. I have been absolutely just dominating that Twitter account. Please, please, please say something to me. Engage with me on Twitter. GSMC_football. I am bored. I have Twitter up. I just downloaded the desktop app of Twitter. Just tweet me. Do something. Again, Andrew Desino here, signing off. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. Love you all.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.